Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome, and I'm here to bring you guys the next set of games from Assembly Winter Aces ROG tournament. And of course this is it's actually a round of 32 tournament. I'm only casting from the round of 8 onwards because this did go live last week and I know a lot of us missed it due to MLG, or maybe you guys just didn't tune in. Hope you guys have enjoyed the cast so far. I'm doing a set a day. 2 days ago I did Elfie versus Stefano. Stefano took that down, so eOnZerG did advance. Following that, it was a TVT with Select and Puma. Puma was able to advance there, so now we have a Korean Terran in the semifinals, and it's time to go to the next set of games, and it of course is going to be a best of 3. We're going to be looking at Mouse Esports Mana, or Mouse Sports Mana in short. He is going to be the green Terran at the top right hand corner of GSL Daybreak, and his opponent is not Taki. That's just a proxy account. It is actually FXO Lucky, who, if you guys tuned into IPL 3 a few months ago, you guys probably recall that Lucky took 2nd place after having an amazing run through the tournament at the championship level. He defeated Boxer, I think, with some burrowed Baneling bombs, complete hidden surprise, and totally swung the favor of the game for him in that set. He also ran through a bunch of other really good players, but at the end was defeated by Stefano in the grand finals. So Lucky, an extremely talented player, had a brief little moment in Code S at the beginning of this year and then dropped back down to Code A, but we all know how difficult it really is to maintain that level of play that Code S truly is. So no harm, no foul there, and I'm really excited to bring this to you guys. It's going to be a ZVP, which I have already casted one ZVP already with Stefano and Elfie, so this is going to be the 2nd ZVP that I'm bringing to you guys. And as you know, very cute by Mana here, blocking that hatchery for a really long time. Wow. And he's going to build a pylon just for added measure, so that's really annoying for Mr. Lucky here. But as always, I'll be bringing you guys the win rate statistics. We actually have Mana boasting I believe a 50% win rate only versus Zerg, which is actually his worst matchup. Now Mana, don't get it wrong, he is one of the best players in Europe right now, alongside Thorazane. That we do have the hatchery going down over at the 3rd now to help overcome the fact that it was blocked over here by the pylon. But Mana, along with Thorazane and Naniwa, some of the best European players in the world, really. So his worst matchup is against Zerg, which is a bit of a shame, especially considering that Lucky's best matchup is against Protoss, because he's got a 75% win rate going for him. So Mana's really going to need all the help he can get, and thankfully for him, GSL Daybreak has a good win rate for Protoss, actually. 55% overall, historically in I believe the Korean scene. So when you think about it, this map I would have thought is more of a Protoss favorite map as well, and I think I talked about this in the first set, Stefano versus Elfie. I feel like even though there's a lot of attack paths in the middle of the map, a lot of it is very narrow, especially this location right here, and because of that, Protoss can definitely thrive if they get a good engagement in the center, and it's somewhat difficult for Zerg to get that flank going for them. So we'll keep our eyes peeled for that. One thing that Zergs do have going for them, though, is they can hide overlords on these little plateaus, if you will, and I guess Lucky decided to forego that opportunity. He's rather gonna go hide it in the back plateau over here. This is an even better spot for an overlord, and this is his 2nd scouting overlord. The first one has already made its way across the entire Protoss main, so getting a full good scout there, and the 2nd overlord is going to park its rear end behind the rear end of the natural of the Protoss. So pretty good scouting here coming out of Lucky. Even though he did get a little bit of a delay on that hatchery, I really like what he did, and a lot of Zergs do this now. Is if your natural is going to be delayed by a probe or a pylon, just go expand somewhere else, because you know what, you're going to expand there anyway, so you might as well expand there and then grab this one when you get your spawning pool. And that is what we see Lucky doing right now. So he is really starting to drone up. No surprise there. He hasn't really surpassed a Protoss yet, which is a bit of a surprise. But when you think about it, Protoss players do have the ability to chrono boost, and Mana hasn't really thrown down anything yet. We've seen the first additional gateways coming right now. So this entire time he's been using his chrono boost and his Nexi to, yes, the plural of Nexus is Nexi, to go ahead and get as many probes as possible. So he's been able to keep up with the Zerg in production. Very impressive from Mana here. And we do look like we're going to be set up for what seems to be a macro game, which would be great to see. I haven't seen a 30-minute plus matchup yet in this tournament from the round of 8 onwards that I've casted. And the map, GSL Daybreak, has been known for some pretty epic matches. So keep that in the back of your mind. We might see something crazy going on here. Lucky brings the Overlord back across here, but before it dies, he did get the scout off, which is great. And he also sent it into the middle of the map. I don't know if you guys noticed that, into the middle of the base, so he could see the gases and the gateways, and he saw both gases and 3 gates. So he's got a pretty good beat as to what's going on here. I wonder if he saw that robotics facility. No, he didn't. So that was a miss by him, and he doesn't really know exactly what's going on. You know, it could be something like a 6 gate or all-in or some crazy thing like that. But Mana is going for a robotics facility, so it's a standard build here, 3-gate robo into additional gateways, and usually when Protoss expand and then get 3 gates in a robotics facility, that does mean that they're going to play the build up the Colossus Wars game and then move out and you know, when they're maxed out or when they feel comfortable, and then start to engage the Zerg army. So I would not be surprised to see that support bait coming up pretty soon here, so he can get some Colossi out. He's also investing into early sentries at the same time. May actually have a timing attack on his hands here as he finishes +1 armor, or is actually just began, but he might do some kind of a timing play. He's actually going to kill off his own probe. How did that happen? It got blocked in by his own building infrastructure, so he ended up killing it, which is kind of funny, clearing up some supply, I suppose. And an Overseer comes in here. It will see the robotics facility, which is huge, and now Lucky doesn't have to worry or concern himself with the possibility of some kind of an all-in play. So he sees the robo, and he sees the sentry count. He knows what's going on now. It's a standard play from the Protoss. He should be prompted to go ahead and grab another expansion pretty soon. And he's doing a really good job, Lucky is, of expanding that creep. And I talk about this all the time. Creep expansion is that other elemental resource that Zergs need to master. And it's not very easy to do, but when you do master it, it gives you so much offensive and defensive capabilities that it really allows you to balance out the game. And on top of that, it gives you vision, so it's huge. Now, that Zealot is trying to make its way over to the top left, but no hatchery going down quite yet. Now we do have the image, the silhouette of a hatchery coming over here, but not before the Zealot dies. And so the Protoss will not know exactly what the timing on that hatch is, but he's going to go ahead and expand to the 3rd anyways, and you can't fault him for that. He doesn't want to fall behind in the macro game, and absolutely, we are in store for a macro game right now. As I said before, we do have that robotic support bay up. First Colossus on the way. I believe that's the first Colossus. It is the first Colossus. And yeah, the Zerg right now just building up a large army. And look at that new update right here, the units tab. I don't know if this is a new change or not, but I never realized that it shows the larva. So that's kind of cool for the Zerg for a caster at least, or observer, to be able to tell how much larva is available. Because sometimes Zergs will save up a crap load of larva, and that is another resource that the Zergs have to definitely keep in the back of their mind. Now we do have an attack coming from Lucky here, poised to strike the 3rd of the Protoss. Force fields will be expended, and that's okay for the Zergs. Sometimes as the swarm, you want to move in, you want to force the force fields out of the Protoss, forcing force fields out of the Protoss, no pun intended, but it's an important thing to do because it will diminish the Protoss ability to stack up that force field and that force field energy, and thereby making them a little bit less of a threat to deal with. So Lucky's doing a decent job right now. He's once again expanded over to the central location. That is a 5th hatchery now total, not counting macro hatches, of course. He is going to transition into a Spire here. Does he have a hive yet? No. So he's actually going to go into Mutalisks here, ladies and gentlemen. Going in with all these roaches, though, but he gets caught by the force fields, and that is a bit of a strange play, I feel like. He's going to lose almost all the roaches for essentially nothing, and I'm sure he was thinking about just moving in and trying to force the Protoss to use the force fields, but unfortunately for him, Mana just had really good control and was able to lock in a good amount of roaches. That was about 20 or 30 supply worth of roaches going down the toilet, and you're not going to see that come back up for a while, because Lucky is transitioning into mass mutas here. Now, the mass muta strat can be extremely effective. It's actually a surprise ambush tactic that a lot of Zerg players use, essentially to surprise the Protoss and bring out a bunch of mutas, and the Protoss really doesn't expect it. So this is a very common strategy a lot of Zergs are using. We'll have to see how Lucky pulls this off. Currently, right now, Mana has no idea that all these mutas are coming. He has Blink on the way, but it's not quite done yet, and at this stage, the Protoss absolutely needs Blink in order to combat the aerial attack coming from the Zerg. Now, this is a complete bombardment of the Protoss main, and now Mana has to escape with all of his probes intact, but he is unable to do so, losing about 10 probes so thus far in this engagement. 16 Harvesters have gone down, and now the Stalkers have to come up one at a time through the ramp, which the mutas will enjoy picking off, and now finally more Stalkers warping in, and that is a critical mass, enough to ward away the Mutalisks. But I really feel like that surprise attack has helped, you know, justify the cost of going with so many of these Mutalisks. He's killed off 16 probes already, also trying to make a little bit of a counter ground attack with some Zerglings, but Mana had his bases covered with 2 photon cannons, pretty much being the defensive grid of this third, along with the Colossus, and that was enough to keep the Zerg at bay. But right now, Mana's really rocking the Mutalisk Zergling strategy, and he's gonna go into the third one more time, this time with the Mutas helping the Zerglings on the ground. He is actually gonna pick off the photon cannons, and now the Zerglings are free to overwhelm the Protoss army. Colossus going down here. Colossus are really terrible against Muta Zergling, and while you might think they're great against Zerglings, the Mutas just absolutely tear them apart. And now finally more Blink Stalkers coming in, but not before damage was inflicted at the third. Not that much damage though. 20 Harvesters killed so far. You would have thought a lot more would have gone down in that engagement, but not really. But at the same time, the thing here is Lucky has absolutely crushing map control. He's keeping the Protoss inside the base. He's not allowing Mana to max out into that dreaded Protoss army, and he's launching another ground attack over to the third. And this time, Mana brings in more Stalkers. He had Stalkers waiting to defend this location. Nice Blink right there. But this is really cool to watch because there's essentially 2 battles going on at the same time, and both players have to micro those 2 battlefronts perfectly, essentially, not make any game-changing mistakes, and at the same time still continue to build their army, upgrade their weaponries and their armor, and there's so much things going on right now, and it's such a high-level game, and really interesting strategy here from Lucky, who's going into centrifugal hooks for his Banelings. This is a different strategy. I've seen a lot of Zergs use it before, but it is a little bit uncommon, and the Banelings are going to be really nice just because Banelings are great, period. They're such a good unit. So essentially the Zerg player here trying to take away from the standard, you know, Roach, Hydra, Corruptor, or even Zergling Infestor. He's going with Muta, Ling, and eventually into Banelings. We'll have to see how effective this is going to be. Now, of course, Banelings not that great against Stalkers, but against everything else, you betcha they're pretty good. And even against Stalkers, if you have enough of them, you could just overwhelm almost any type of ground army. And here comes those Mutalisks once again, but they actually get picked off by the Stalkers. Those 1-2 Stalkers essentially landing a 1-2 punch against the Mutas, but now the Zerglings have come in on the ground, and that is going to be enough to overwhelm these Stalkers. Stalkers are forced to blink back over to the third, and now Mana finally makes that transition into the unit that is absolutely essential to combating the Muta Ling strategy, and that is the High Templar. High Templars and eventually into Archons will just shred Mutas and Zerglings, but right now the High Templars aren't out in force yet, and they're gonna get picked off. But before they get picked off, Mana decides to morph it into Archon just to buy a little bit more time. He knew those Templars were dead anyways. Right now, Mana also trying to get Psionic Storm out. He's got to get Storm in order to combat these Mutas. Storm is almost done, but he's losing his High Templars left and right. More Zerglings trying to flood into the main as well. What a battle between Lucky and Mana, and both of them know it. It's for $20,000. It's a lot of money on the line. What would you do with 20 grand? And that's what these players are asking themselves right now. They've just got to win this one to get into the semifinals. And, you know, even though 29 workers have gone down so far for the Protoss player Mana, he's still tied up in terms of Harvesters. And oh my god, the Storm comes down as the Mutas fly in, but the Mutas were able to dodge a lot of the Storms right there. They didn't take that much damage. When I say not that much damage, obviously they didn't die. They did take some damage. All of them in the yellow right now, but nothing too critical. I mean, if they had gone down, that would have been absolutely terrible. So Lucky was able to get out of there, but now he's flying in with weakened Mutas. I don't know how wise that is, because those Stalkers are getting really high in upgrades at 1 armor and 3 weapons of Mutas. Only at 1 weapons, that's not going to be enough to combat the Stalkers. And eventually, Lucky is going to have to transition into some kind of a hive tech build because the Protoss is now beginning to deflect these attacks with reasonable consistency. So I really do feel like Lucky at this point might want to make some kind of transition, and we do have Greater Spire on the way. Yes, he is going to transition into the Broodlords, the final tier of evolution of the Zerg, and that is when things are going to get really gnarly in this matchup. There is a War Prism making its way over to the top here, that although the mutas are already there, and that is going to be able to pick off the War Prism. Nice play by Lucky, who is really just saves his third from any type of potential harass. Not like he needed to. There's 4 crawlers there anyways. There's also a burrowed Zerglings hiding underneath the potential 4th expansion of mana as well. How cute is that? Will force an observer to come over there to clear that up. Meanwhile, Lucky also expands over not just the top side expansion, which is rightfully his in a way. This one's actually more rightfully his. Like, he basically just stole this one at the top side, so he's taken both neutral expansions, if you want to call it that, when you look at both of them in the context of this map. And now he's starting to grab a ton of crawlers in the middle, and this is another strategy Zergs will use to just throw down tons of crawlers. Why not? You've got plenty of drones in the late game, and it helps against that Protoss Deathball. And Mana right now, his whole thing, he's got to get Templars out and Archons to deal with these mutas and Zerglings. But the problem here is, I don't know if he realizes that that switch into Broodlords has already been done. In fact, the Broodlords have been hiding this entire game. They're hiding over here. They haven't been revealed yet. There is no observer nearby, and Mana is just kind of preparing for a muta-ling warfare, but he doesn't realize that the Broodlords are about to be upon him, and he's got to muster up enough of an army to deal with that. A lot of Protoss players will go into Void Rays to deal with Broodlords, which isn't a bad idea at all. Linkstalkers en masse can also kind of deal with Broodlords. But I don't know, we'll have to see. It's going to be such a crazy game. One of the hatcheries at the 12 was just picked off right here, so Mana trying to regain some of that lost potential economy. But look at the Zerg army. My god, now it's really well rounded. Look how well composed that is. Banelings, Infestors, Mutas, and that is a lot of Mutas. Don't get it wrong, ladies and gentlemen. That's a lot of Mutas. And finally, to round it out is the air artillery, the Broodlords. What a mixture here. But this is the thing, though. I don't like this area to engage in. This is a very narrow choke point where Protoss can really thrive, but it looks like Lucky completely drives his way through, and now he's got an open field to work with. He's also bringing Queens as well to help transfuse the Broodlords, another late game strategy that Zerg will employ. I don't know how Mana is going to deal with this. This is going to be so crazy, but the thing is, Lucky is completely stacked up on top of himself, and the Storms are doing so much damage. At the same time, Fungal Growth also going off on the Protoss army. I think Mana has the better concave here, but it's just going to come down to the micro. All those Stalkers getting really fungaled up. The Mutas now going to work mass transfuses on all the Mutalisks, and both armies absolutely colliding against one another. Here comes some Banelings for extra good measure. What a battle that has just unfolded before our eyes, and I guess Mana won that battle, but I don't know. Not really, because Lucky retreated, and you might think a retreat is like the white flag of surrender, like he lost, but he actually retreated with more of an army, I feel like. His Muta's all intact here. And the only reason why he didn't go for the entire kill was because of that Archon, I feel like. That Archon with 2-3 will just shred those Mutas apart with help from the Stalkers. So what a battle here, ladies and gentlemen. And now it looks like Lucky gonna go up once again. Oh, a pylon, a solo pylon powering 3 gates. A bit of an amateur mistake there by Mana to only leave 1 pylon there, and it will hinder his production just a little bit. He should definitely get another probe over there to build 1 or 2 actually more pylons. But right now focusing his efforts on getting another Nexus now at the center location. Really, in terms of bases right now, the Zerg is ahead by 1 base, which is what you would want to see if you are a fan of a very close game. And of course, right now, Lucky also continuing to muster up a huge army. He's just recomposing his army full of Broodlords, Mutas, Infestors, Zerglings, but now that Colossus count is really starting to rack up, and once it gets up to 5 or so with +3 weapons, the amount of DPS they can do, sorry, borrowing a WoW term here, but it's kind of become a global term for gaming, it's insane! The damage it can do is insane, and look at how fast that hatchery just went down. Beautiful plays, a host of Broodlings coming out, not just from the Broodlings, but also the hatchery, but it looks like Mana's just going to go ahead and retreat. He may lose one Colossus here in the retreat as his forces are a bit clumped up, but the Brood Lords are thankfully and mercifully slow here, so Mana is able to escape over to this Nexus, which is a key focal point. Now the Zerg wants to crush this. What a storm! The Brood Lords taking tons of damage, but more than that, the Banelings and Zerglings underneath also taking huge globs of damage. Now the Brood Lords are going to be able to go to work. It is absolutely essential that Lucky kills off all the Stalkers here so his Brood Lords can continue to finish off the Protoss Colossus. And will Lucky be able to do that or not? Those Archons and Stalkers continuing to warp in. It looks like Lucky is just barely holding on here. If he can kill off the rest of these Stalkers, then these Colossus are doomed. And it looks like Lucky will kill off the rest of the Protoss anti-air. And now these Colossus have nothing to fight. They cannot shoot the air. They have to fall back. Ground has been given up, and this Nexus is going to go down. Unless Mana can muster up enough reinforcements in time, which I don't think he can. He did eventually repower those gateways, but that Nexus is going to go downtown. And now Mana has got to rebuild his anti-air force. His Colossus count, thankfully the backbone is still alive. It's still well and kicking, but he's got to get more Stalkers, Archons, High Templars for Storm. Otherwise, his Colossus are essentially useless. They're just neutered without the backup ground forces. So, yeah, it looks like Mana has been able to remuster up an army here. 3-3 is his current upgrade situation maxed out. The Zerg army focusing mostly on air upgrades. It looks like 12 o'clock is going to get once again destroyed, and a couple of drones also getting roasted on the way up there as well, but nothing too serious, as Lucky is just trying to be a little, you know, really greedy, I guess you could say is the term for it, but not greedy to the point where it's a foolish mistake. He's just trying to grab every potential opportunity he can, and it's no big loss to lose that hatchery. Now it looks like Mana is going to go ahead and move into the center a little bit with some of his Stalkers, just trying to take a couple of pot shots, also sending that Observer in there. There's no Overseer in this army. Wow, that's a bit of a surprise for me. Lucky should invest in an Overseer just to get rid of Observers like this, but he hasn't yet, so that Observer does see everything here, and the Zerg army is beginning to roll in. This is where Mana wants to engage at this choke point. He knows it. He's sending in the Templar. He gets a couple storms off, but they do not hit any crucial areas. Getting underneath the Brood Lords, really. There comes the feedbacks on the Infestors, but not before the Infestors also launch their vengeful spell. That is the fungal growth. These Stalkers are all so clumped up, and the Brood Lords in turn are going to work. Look at how many Broodlings are coming down. It's a Broodling shower right now, and quite a bit of the Protoss army getting left in the dust there. And now here comes Lucky. He's feeling very bold now. He's going to start to work down this Nexus, but the Stalkers blink in, trying to pick off the Brood Lords, and eventually the Infestors fungal it down, and the Banelings going to town, and it looks like Mana is going to lose this fight. Those Brood Lords and Mutas are just so strong. Does he have enough anti-air to kill off the Brood Lords before he loses all of his Stalkers? I don't know. I don't think he can kill off the last few Brood Lords nor the Mutas, and now he's got to fall back once again to get more Stalkers on the field, and all at the same time, of course, losing this Nexus. The Nexus is in the red. It is under 300 HP. If it takes a couple more shots, it will go down. There's a fungal growth from Lucky, and Lucky now going to clean up the last remaining Stalkers, and that means these Colossus are basically done for, and I think that last battle completely went in favor of Lucky. Lucky just took control of this game. He killed off the Nexus. What a beautiful play. Some Zealots now warping in. It really looks like Mana's running out of resources. 700 minerals, 200 gas. Not enough to keep fighting this prolonged war of attrition. And it looks like Lucky, just overwhelming Mana, is going to take the first game of this set. Remember, guys, it is a best of 3. And it looks really like right now Lucky is going to take the first game of this set. Killing off that Nexus was huge, absolutely huge. A couple of his Infestors here not gonna go down. They will burrow underneath from the ground. Very nice micro right there. And Mana now has to pull back over to another reserve Nexus, but really there is no surplus of funds here. There's only one mineral field for 50 minerals there. Not even worth the time of the probe to go over there and mine it. And here comes the Brood Lords once again showering their rain of Broodlings over in the bottom right hand corner, and Mana, knowing that he's out of it, calls GG. What a first game to start off this set, and I did call it. This might be a macro game, and indeed it was. 33-minute long. Absolutely epic game. Great job by the Zerg. Lucky to win it out. Huge momentum boost. Absolutely huge. We'll have to see if he continues it in game 2, or if Mana is going to be able to resolve himself and really start to think how he can take out this absolute beast of a Zerg. We'll find out in game 2, guys. Hope you guys all stay tuned, and this is HD signing out.